So this was not supposed to happen. This was not supposed to happen. In my last video, when I visited the Japanese bookstore, I was just browsing, had a firm resolve not to buy anything. And as I walked past, I heard a voice calling out to me, and it said, "This is yours. You dropped this." And so here we are. Usually I do not buy physical copies of manga or books because I just have very limited space and I'm broke. If I do buy a volume, it's usually going to just be one here or there. It's not going to be like some people who have giant libraries and they start their collection from volume 1. I think I have already given up on that dream. If I do make any purchases, I feel like I need to justify them. So this is actually my first Jujutsu Kaisen volume. And you know, I was walking in the bookstore and I also saw the latest volume of Chainsaw Man with the Yoshida cover, but I held back. I think if I get Chainsaw Man, it might be one of the International Assassins arc volumes because yeah, their cover is always on point, so maybe someday. So going back to Jujutsu Kaisen, there will be spoilers for volume 26 and beyond in this video, so if you must, then flee now. So the chapters in this volume does contain the infamous chapter 236, and I remember when it came out, it was just so exciting, and I remember it was so hard to go about my day, as if this didn't just happen, as if this didn't just drop on all our lives. But yeah, it was a very exciting and fun time, so I wanted to buy this volume just to kind of commemorate it. And this volume, as you can see, is also not in Anglais, it's in Japonais. So I think what I'm going to do this time to justify this purchase is to go ahead and try to read and study Japanese. Just for reference, I did learn a little bit of Japanese when I was in college for like 6 months, and I'm kind of at the level where I can introduce myself and read snack labels in the supermarket. And I have read manga and watched anime since I was little, listened to music, but I feel like it hasn't helped that much because I always just watch or read in English. I think this will be a good study session. When I was little, I also used to go back to Taiwan and buy Chinese translated manga, and I would use that to study Chinese. So I think I'll do something similar this time and try to brush the dust off of my Japanese. And towards the end, I'll also give you some of my thoughts on the volume and show you some of the study notes that I will take. A bit last minute, but the landlord is coming in today with the building insurance inspector. They're going to come make sure I didn't burn the place down. And so I think I'll get out of here, go touch some grass, and I think I'll bring him along with me and pretend I can string together more than 3 words together at once. So for today, I'm wearing a turtleneck checkered dress that I got from Marshalls because our family shops chronically at Marshalls, and a black sweater vest. I wish we had manga cafes here like in Asia. So over there you can just sit down and read, order some food. But yeah, don't have those here. And bookstores there are really nice too. But everything is wrapped in plastic wrap. So unlike here, like where people just sit down and read and leave without buying anything. Yeah, so as I was saying, I think one of the reasons why the bookstores are so nice in Asia is because of the plastic wraps on the books. But you know, sometimes you just want to touch the books, you know? Just want to like feel the books. I'm back! I think I was just escaping bumblebees the whole day. Like my immersion! But they were really cute. They were like the big fuzzy bumblebees. But I did have to run because my skin is allergic. I break out in these hives that like last the whole year if I get stung. So, but I went ahead and looked at all the pretty pictures and gave it a look over once. So now I'm going to actually have to go back and like decipher the text. So I have my manga English translation pulled up, handy dandy Google Translate, and I have a hiragana katakana chart that I had to rememorize annually. Let's go! So I got through a bit of studying and I'm far from finished, but I do like the idea that I can keep going back to this to study. And I have some takeaways and tips that I want to share if you're interested in using manga, particularly a Shonen Jump series, for learning Japanese. Firstly, I say it's good to have a basic understanding of Japanese if you're going to use Shonen Jump manga because it's more complicated in terms of vocab, verb conjugations, sentence structure, etc. So if you're new to Japanese, you can go down a level and read a children's manga. For example, here, I'm comparing the JJK volume with a manga called Yotsuba that's directed for younger children and audiences. And you can see the difference in sentence structure and that Yotsuba is much simpler. And there are many YouTube channels that also recommend Yotsuba as a great manga to learn Japanese in an everyday context, and I definitely agree. You can also read magazines, cookbooks, travel books if you're looking for simpler reading. Next, there is a lot of kanji in manga because the target audience of Shonen Jump is teenagers, and there is hiragana or Japanese spelling written next to the kanji so you can learn it. However, a lot of the kanji characters tend to be more esoteric or niche or traditional just due to the nature of the story. So it's a great resource if you want to expand your knowledge of kanji, but you may just need to target learn if you're looking to learn things that you can use in an everyday context. If you study with manga, I would recommend that you write or copy things down. So you take time to write vocab lists, conjugate your verbs, add to your adjectives and adverbs that can help you retain more. And you can also write your notes and explanations in as much Japanese as possible so that you're learning to express yourself better in a foreign language instead of just passively learning. And in my opinion, the most important thing about learning language is conversation. You learn a language by conversing with others, hearing it regularly, and exposing and immersing yourself in it. So I suggest reading the manga aloud. If you don't have anyone to read it aloud to, you can read it aloud to yourself, and don't worry about making mistakes because that's how we all learn, right? And would also suggest watching the anime, listening to the episodes in Japanese with both Japanese and English subtitles on at the same time if you have that feature to get yourself more familiarized with the language and the phrases and pronunciations. And I'll just show you some of my notes as well. And the notebook is kind of falling apart, so I'll show you some close-ups. But overall, it's pretty simple. I put in some commonly used phrases from the manga in one section, wrote down some character names, noted down some of the verbs with commonly and not as commonly used verbs in separate columns, adjectives, prepositions, and some miscellaneous vocabulary. And I also wrote down the English translation and the hiragana for the kanji. And while I studied, I also used my college textbook as a reference, which is a great resource. And I can link the one that I use in the description for those of you who are interested. I also sometimes leverage AI and use ChatGPT to compile lists of commonly used vocabulary more efficiently, or just to look up something really quickly. So for example here, I'll ask it to give me like a list of Japanese verbs that are commonly used, and if you don't know how to conjugate the verb, you can also ask it to do that for you. You can also ask for a list of common phrases, make sentences, etc. But of course, AI isn't perfect and it's not a replacement for any of your study material. So just make sure to take it with a grain of salt, just as you would with Google Translate. But it can be a helpful learning supplement, especially if you don't have a Japanese copy of the manga or a textbook reference. You can use something like this or reference free Japanese study material and dictionaries online. Lastly, I also practice by writing down some vocab words in calligraphy. And my Chinese and Japanese kanji are at like first grade level legibility, and I find that doing calligraphy just helps me put more time and effort into each character. Otherwise, I might just write mindlessly, but this helps me be more mindful of just each stroke and the balance of the characters. And I also do this with hiragana. And yeah, it kind of just looks like this. Nothing too amazing. Kind of looks cursed, not gonna lie. If I summon a curse, my kings will arrive and come see me, right? Studying. So now to give some thoughts on the volume. This fight, the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, is so amazing, and reading it now in one go versus reading it week by week does give it a different feeling, like a different sense of momentum. And I love the beginning of the fight. It's just them going all out, and we've seen Sukuna show off in the Shibuya arc with Jogo and Mahoraga, but this time Gojo is also going all out, and the fights in this urban environment is just really dynamic, and there's nothing held back, and there's such a playfulness about it, especially in the beginning, that really reflects both the characters' strengths and their personalities. And the Battle of the Domains is so cool to see since both characters are so strong, so you don't know what to expect, and I really like seeing that in high quality. As for the airport scene where they discuss the north-south symbolism, so the main cover of the volume actually says Minamie, which means to go or head south, and that's the name of the volume as well as the chapter title for chapter 236. And it's interesting that north and south are juxtaposed and represented by Meimei and Nanami's characters. It's kind of mirroring their contrasting personalities, their backstories, and their fates in the Shibuya arc. Like, Meimei grew and invented a new version of herself growing up when she felt constrained by the limits of her curse technique, whereas Nanami returns to the Jujutsu Society after rejecting it, and in some ways comes back to who he was. And I realized that Meimei's character was built up mainly for Gege to like drop this quote, rep like the concept of North, and introduce her little brother to us. Like, Riri is actually the build-up here. And to comment on Gojo himself, since he is the main subject of the cover and the quote-unquote strongest who has been honing himself in Jujutsu, it must have taken so much determination and conviction on his part to go through everything that he has gone through so far, and I would have crumbled under all of that pressure. Like, carrying the responsibility of this power, his clan, the Jujutsu Society, and having these traumatic experiences, losing those that he cares about, and him getting unsealed and coming back to see so many of his allies gone. Like, the famous panel is a fun meme for us, but obviously he did go into this fight with Sukuna with the expectation that he was going to lose, even though he's putting his all in with the intention to win. And despite everything, he still looks toward the future with hope and cares for his students so well. So I think that's amazing. And I do know the fan theories. After reading this and seeing Yuji and Sukuna's relationship confirmed in the more recent chapters, I feel more convinced that Gojo will come back in some shape or form, because his character arc, like, it just doesn't feel complete yet, you know? Like, there's no closure, and despite jokes about Gege hating Gojo, he has treated this character with care, and you're not just gonna dump your cash cow. And speaking of Gege, as a final note, it's actually really amazing to see how far JJK has come and how much it has taken off in recent years. I still remember when Gojo was known as the Kakashi knockoff. And now he is the anime it boy, and JJK, one of the most talked about pieces of fiction in the world. So anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for looking through the volume with me as I try to decipher Japanese. And the story is great, even better having it in physical form. And I say the volume itself is standard quality for a manga volume, and I had a fun time going through this, and it's quite motivational to study when it's something that I enjoy. And honestly, it was pretty complicated for my level. Like, I'm so tired, and I'm not sure exactly how much I'll retain, but I do feel accomplished that I can read and understand a little bit more than I could before. But yeah, everyone, I want to hear what you think of this volume and what your predictions are for the story's future development. I'm really excited to see where the manga continues to take us as we enter Yuji's awakening stage. So thank you so much for tuning in and hope to see you in the next one. Bye! He's coming back.